Hello, and welcome to Hospice Insights, the Law and Beyond, where we connect you to what matters in the ever-changing world of hospice and palliative care.
If only I knew. Avoiding the most common mistakes with the 855. Okay, Andrew, thank you for doing this podcast with me. I will say our 855 podcasts don't ever perform as well as some other exciting topics like audits and AI and all that stuff. But as lawyers who have to deal with problems, we are doing this as a public service, despite the fact that no one listens, because I hate getting called on a Friday at 5 that someone's like, I'm not getting paid by Medicare because I've been, deactivated. And then someone wants to pull a rabbit out of the hat and fix this. And it's like, okay, this is going to take a little while. So anyway, this is not because we love talking about it. I think it's because we don't like people to foolishly get into trouble when they don't really need to, because this is all human error. Administratively, you're just not paying attention. And the government means business on this stuff.
They do.
So if you have not caught that, because you've ignored our other 2 or 3 podcasts on 855s, maybe we're going to try to make this real punchy because you've come up with a top 10 list or something. So we're going to try to make this as fun as possible. But
yes.
So,
yes. And if you're listening now, you are among the elite. So,
elite. That's what we're going to do. We're going to give people,
the inside scoop.
Yeah, the inside scoop. And because the government means business. So, and none of this stuff is hard. Everyone's capable of doing that. And if people need help with these things, we are a phone call away, and we help people with 855s all the time. And so, before we get to your list, though, I'm going to say one important thing on how to avoid this is, I will say it for the millionth time, do not have finance people do your 855, because I think it should be in compliance, or someone who's more tuned in to listening to our podcasts and the government focus on 855 and accuracy. And because I think most folks we listen to, all of these tasks that we're talking about lie with finance because they think it's payment related. But I really think it houses in compliance, because it's just you don't give finance when we got a new administrator and you need to update your license with the new administrator to the state. Finance isn't usually doing that. Someone else is, right? So I think and we've covered that in other podcasts, but I think the top 10, whatever list we have here, think about who in your organization is doing this, because none of the things that we're going to say to do are, only finance would know this. It's actually maybe they're less likely to know these things. So I will get off my high horse and you take it away, Andrew.
Yeah.
Tip 1.
So, and I guess that, kind of framing these as mistakes to avoid, the most common mistakes we see in working with a lot of hospice and other providers on these 855 provider enrollment issues. So the first mistake that we commonly see that you should avoid is waiting until revalidation to update your 855 or your Medicare enrollment record. We see this frankly a lot. Right. And I mean, revalidation.
And Andrew, revalidation is at every 3 years?
I believe it's every 5 years.
Okay. So can't wait 5 years.
No. So now if when revalidation comes and you find that you haven't updated things, I mean, yes, definitely update things. But under the law, you actually do have there are deadlines for reporting changes to your enrollment record that are much shorter than 5 years. So if you are, updating personnel, right, in Section 6, because you have a new administrator or you have a new board member or a board member left or whatever, those are kind of changes of control. Or if there's an ownership change, then there's a 30-day deadline to report that. Kind of your more mundane, business identifying information type changes like a new email address or something, those are 90-day deadlines. So after the change, you have 90 days to report it. But there are even some changes that Medicare wants you to get pre-approval before doing. So like if you're a hospice and you're relocating, you're changing your business address, like the practice location of the hospice, technically you want to get that or submitted before it happens, as opposed to waiting a long time after the fact to report it.
Yeah, super important. And I do think, and it's probably even more for nonprofits because they have board members and people cycle on and off. If you're a privately held company, I mean, I guess you could have different ownership changes because percentages, that considers a change too. So if
Yes.
someone gets more equity, like they're moving, you had 13%, now you have 15%, you still need to report that change, even though it's not a different person. So,
Correct.
I mean, private companies can have, some reporting, but I think for nonprofits some nonprofits don't have pretty big boards, right? Like, and those people can cycle off and all of that stuff. And that this is something everyone needs to pay attention to, but I think especially nonprofits, um, you need to have a checklist because you're probably updating your website to remove that board member, right? And it's like your checklist should also be, oh, I need to report that change. And I guess too, as we're talking about board members, the board member needs to give their social security number. I feel like this happens all the time,
Yes.
where we have board members who don't want to give social security numbers and there isn't really a way around it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
like,
CMS wants to see the date of birth and the social security number of anyone that you're reporting has a controlling interest in the provider. So yeah, board members, administrator, medical director. So yeah, you're right. Sometimes we need to wait for them to call us to verbally tell us that information, but it is something that you're not going to be able to even submit the 855 through PACOS if you don't provide that required information.
yep. So all right. So we got that you have to can't wait to 5 years
Yep.
to tell the government who's in charge. Okay.
Yes. So yes, the second common mistake we wanted to bring up is the mistake of not reporting your hospice administrator and medical director. This is a more hospice specific tip. Most of these are kind of agnostic as to the provider type, but specifically for hospices, your administrator and your medical director need to be on your 855. That is because they are considered to have a managing control, of the day-to-day operations of the hospice. So it's frankly always been a requirement that they be on the 855, but we've seen enforcement on that issue recently, in the past year or two, I would say. So we've had clients who have received letters from CMS saying you need to update your 855 to add administrator and medical director. And the current version of the 855 application, which was updated in September of 2024, it actually now specifically has a checkbox for hospices. So if you're entering a person, it says, if this is for a hospice, is this person, the administrator or the medical director? So very, very clear. This is something on CMS's radar. If your 855 does not currently have these folks listed, you would be advised to list them.
And again, the ramification for not doing this, the government has very broad authority to deactivate you, right?
Yes.
So, which means faucet is turned off.
Yes.
So you have to essentially start all over. I mean, you're not getting a new provider number, but you have to complete it, the whole thing, the
Yes.
855. And that can take, I mean, the quickest thing I think we've seen is like 2-week processing time, but it's also taken several months for people to. So all these
Yes.
things we're talking about, if you don't do it right, they can deactivate you and then you could have serious cash flow issues because
Yes.
not that many people can float, if 90+% of your revenues from Medicare, you know,
Right.
for months on end because you've been deactivated. And so that's why I don't know why more people don't take this seriously, but it's not like we love talking about this, but because the ramifications, I mean, everyone's all interested in audits and payment suspension that can happen in that. And this is essentially a payment suspension that's going to happen to you if you don't do this stuff.
Right.
And
Totally.
so functionally it is like that. So, all right. So tip 3.
Tip 3, we were kind of hinting at this earlier, but that would be to make sure that your 855 lists your full governing body. So if you have a board of directors, every single director needs to be listed on your 855. All of those people are considered to have, a control interest in the provider. And, if you're, depending on the size of your board, right, you might have a lot of turnover, people leave, even beyond sort of like, like the scheduled terms ending. So all of that does need to be reported within 30 days of the change happening. So if you don't have your full governing body on the 855, you should add it and then be mindful, to update your 855 if there are any changes throughout the year.
Yep. And so I guess this tip comes from people maybe just putting their executive board on there or selective board members as opposed to the full board. Is that
Yeah.
where this is
Well,
coming from?
I've seen that. I've seen no board members whatsoever on the 855. Um, so yeah. And I mean, if you have like a 20 member, if your board of directors has 20 people on it, I mean, that's a lot of, changes probably that are happening. So it's a lot to manage. So, I can see why maybe that has slipped through the cracks at times, but it is important. Not just to list sort of the board chair or the, executive committee, but the full board.
Yep. So that's important. What's our fourth tip? And put these because you have them written out, Andrew. We'll include a link in our podcast notes just to like
Yes.
this little tip sheet because
Yep.
they're so important. And like I'm a very visual person. So
Yeah.
yeah.
The fourth mistake to avoid is not keeping your correspondence address or the contact person is listed on your 855 up to date. So basically the email addresses, right, and phone numbers that you've listed on your 855 as the people that the MAC should contact, right? If you do make a change or, even if you haven't made a change, if the MAC wants to talk to you about your 855, those are the people that the MAC's going to reach out to. If you're not monitoring these addresses, right? If you have some, contact person who's left the organization, so the MAC is sending emails and calling a phone number that, right, no one's answering, no one's monitoring, that's bad. We have seen providers be deactivated for that exact scenario where the MAC is trying to get a hold of you, whether you
For whatever reason.
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
If you don't respond to them, they will eventually deactivate you. So critical to make sure that, the addresses that you are monitoring actively are reflected in the 855 and that we're kind of keeping that up to date.
Well, and Adam and I covered in an earlier podcast, like instead of having it be an individual mailbox, like meg.pekarsky at hushblackwell.com, enrollment at hushblackwell.com or whatever.
Yes.
Like it, and many people are checking that. So, if someone's on PTO, someone gets fired, all this stuff.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's an easy fix that these should become never events.
Yes. Yep. And the fifth tip here.
This is a drum roll moment,
Yes.
the final
Well,
tip.
this will be anticlimactic because it's sort of part and parcel of the last tip, which is to make sure that you respond promptly to Mac development requests, because not doing so will lead you to being deactivated. So a development request is, essentially if you submit an 855 update, the Mac, if they, want to quote develop that because there's information missing or they need clarification or they want to see supporting documentation, they will let you know. That's called a development request. They'll say, please update this section or, please submit an org chart to reflect the changes you're reporting. If you don't respond to that promptly, you could be deactivated. There are, I believe it's a 30-day timeline that you're given. Although I've seen in the development request itself, the Mac will tell you like you need to respond by this date.
Yeah.
So, they might give you leeway. It's sort of at their discretion, but the risk of not taking that seriously is, again, they'll conclude that you're just being unresponsive. You've sort of, been neglecting your your obligation to update your 855 and all that. So not good.
Yeah. And I guess two things about that in operationally is, when you submit your 855 update calendar, put a tickler on your calendar that if I don't hear something in a week or something, I should follow up and make sure they got it, because it is really unusual to submit stuff unless if it's like the simplest update. But if you're updating a lot of stuff, it's very hard to get a clean submission. So like 99% of the time, you're going to get a file development request.
Yes.
And so you don't want something to get caught in spam or this or that. And so if you're hearing nothing, this is not a situation, no news, good news. Don't make that assumption, because it could be there's something that is missing. It's like if you haven't gotten a demand letter and an audit from the government, it's not like good news, like, oh, yay, they're not going to come collect this. No, you probably missed it. Like it
Yes.
got sent to the wrong address or whatever. You need to start asking questions. And this is sort of the same thing. Like expect to get a development request. And obviously you can track online, but most people are submitting stuff online, like where this is, but like don't forget that you submitted it and that probably there's going to be follow-up needed, and that we need to take that seriously and know that the things that they ask for sometimes don't make any sense or we think are not required. And because I
That's so
know
true.
when we were dealing with this, it's sort of like I was thinking like, why are we always getting development requests? And I think we've done this so much now. And it's like, I feel it's like impossible to send something in and not have them ask some type of question that even if it's clarifying or whatever.
Totally.
And so this is all elementary school stuff, I think. And this is sort of surprise, surprise. We're probably going to have another 855 podcast or two into the future, because they've made significant changes to 855 reporting requirements for nursing homes and stuff that are very cumbersome. I expect those to come down the pike for hospice at some point here, given our level of concern they have with, impropriety and fraud and other stuff. Because that's what all this enrollment stuff is. A lot of it is about making sure that bad actors aren't jumping around and, doing shell companies to try to, profit.
Yep.
And they really shouldn't, you know, they want to create more transparency. And so if we can't get these basic stuff right, and you're not building an infrastructure to manage this stuff, because I think this should be taking up more time in your organization than it ever has before, because most people, right, were not being as fastidious about all of this stuff. But
Yeah.
the government signaled, and several years ago now, take this seriously. We'll give you a grace period. Like, we'll be nice and not immediately deactivate you. But I think that may soon be coming to an end, and there's not going to be a lot of sympathy. So,
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, but so we'll post the 5 common mistakes, and then obviously within this, we've also talked about how do you operationalize some of these to avoid these mistakes. Like, what does it mean that you do? If it's the email website, if it's the tickler on your calendar, to expect follow up, to monitor that it's actually been fully processed. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff to operationalize this, and then who's completing it to begin with, and probably it should be people who are keeping track of your license stuff, right? Because this is licensing. While it impacts payment, it really isn't payment related. This is really about licensure and certification, which I think really go together. And
Yes.
so that's probably whoever's doing that makes sense.
Well, yeah, and to amplify that point, if you are updating your 855, more than likely you need to also update your license and your Medicaid enrollment. So these should all align, right? The information on these different enrollments and licenses, these should match. So all the more reason to kind of have the same compliance person kind of covering all of those different territories.
Yeah, and when they don't, we've seen then deactivations as a result of that. And then you're having to explain why you reported someone here and not here. And then, of course, it's always inferred that there's intent behind that when it's like probably an oversight. And so I just think this is a laundry list of compliance has to be a bigger part of your budget than it was 10 years ago, because between all these audits and TPE and all the stuff, this enrollment stuff, and it's going to get worse. This is the, tip of the iceberg here. I expect they're going to continue to want more and more transparency. This is just more of a job now, especially as we see consolidation among hospices are getting bigger, and you have multiple provider numbers under a single umbrella. That can be almost a full-time job, trying to keep all of this stuff updated as people come and go and change jobs and stuff. So,
Yep.
yeah.
We're here to help if
Yeah.
you need it. But yeah, it's becoming more complicated, and like you said, we expect that trend to continue here. So,
And I'd rather help on helping people file stuff correctly than dealing on the back end on the Friday afternoon, and I'm getting no payment. How am I going to make payroll conversation?
Yes, exactly.
Those are not fun. I was already mentally like outside having a cocktail, and now I'm having to deal with,
Yeah, good.
Not good. So anyway, Andrew to the rescue. So
yes, here I am.
But so anyway, well, thanks for the time, and this was great. Hopefully, we'll get good listenership, and we will include that top 5 list in the show notes too.
Awesome.
And for those listening, if you ever have topics you want us to cover, as I always say, please reach out. Or, if you like our podcast, please like it, follow us. That would be great, because the more people like and follow us, the more other people can find us. So that would be we're in a real niche market, but I'm sure there's hospices out there that are not listening to us, Andrew, but should be.
Right.
This
it's
is
a
a
free
public
podcast.
service. It's a free podcast. So, and there's no ads. There's no ads for weird stuff that come up. Like when you're watching YouTube or something, you get weird ads. Like, I don't think there's any ads on our podcast. Not that we put on there. Who knows? But so Anyway, well, thanks for your time, and until next time.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Hospice Insights, The Law and Beyond. Thank you for joining the conversation. To subscribe to our podcast, visit our website at hushblackwell.com or sign up wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, may the wind be at your back.